Hey everyone, this is the Notebooks 2.0 and working group meeting for the 8th of January 2026. It's the first one of the new year, so Happy New Year and Merry Christmas if you celebrate and everything else like that. And as always, there's always lots of stuff and things to talk about, but I always just want to pull back to this, which is that we're developing Notebooks version 2 at the moment. So if you don't know what that is, always go to this. This is your starting point to kind of see what happened. It was opened a couple years ago. This wasn't actually when we started designing, it was even before this, but this is just when the issue was made. And so if you don't know what it is, it's just a full rewrite of the Kubeflow Notebooks project. It's better in every single way, pretty much. It's an evolution from the thing that was built 7 years ago or 8 years ago, however long it is now. And it's being developed on the Kubeflow/notebooks repo under this branch. And if you want help contributing and finding new ways to, if you're a user or if you've got feedback or something, you can either raise an issue, which sometimes can be a bit, there's a lot going on, so sometimes that's not necessarily the best place, but this Slack channel is usually what I recommend people to make their comments on. So go there, reach out to me, Andy, or other people. Introduce yourself if you've got experience developing. Say like, oh, I'm a developer in the back end, I'm a developer in the front end, what experience you have. Specifically, we need people who have Golang and KubeBuilder kind of experience with the controller, Golang kind of REST API experience for the back end, and also interestingly, we do use something approximating KubeBuilder and other controller runtime things here too, and React for the front end. So, um, okay, one new thing, we'll skip over these two things for now. The tracking boards and stuff, we're going to improve this in the new year, I think, and we'll have a nice thing to show here. But the development guide is kind of up on the repo now, so if you're wanting to, we strongly recommend everyone who's been developing to kind of review this, and it's new right now, so make suggestions if you've got it's anything you think people would need to know, but not overwhelm them when they're just learning how to contribute to the project. It's going to try and be a guide for getting started, and so it even kind of covers concepts like how do I find an issue to work on or things like that. It covers all the places you might need to run lints and tests because it's a bit confusing if you don't know those things, how to run pull requests. And then we do have this specific part, which I recommend you try out if you haven't already, if you were developing locally in a different way. Tilt makes it a lot easier. It effectively lets you run with one command to some extent, a local version where these are the commands so you can follow it. But it lets you run a local version of Kubernetes. You're already going to run that yourself in like on K3D or with I think I think actually is what we require in this case. Uh, and uh, and automatically reload and build new images. It just makes everything a lot easier. And it lets you run a true end-to-end one. So what that does mean that if you're a bit more advanced, we don't recommend this for normal users, and this is what we were just talking about before the call, is that a place you can start contributing at the moment, which people keep asking, and other things like that. And if you're an experienced like Go developer, please reach out as well. Like that's one thing. But if you're just looking for a low level kind of entry point to the project, try out this guide. Tell us if it works. That's a minimum. If it does work and you manage to get everything deployed end to end, it is a very alpha kind of pre-alpha, if you will, product. So don't expect anything to work really. But feedback about various things, longer term, even the front end feedback, this would be a great place for that. And so just wanted to call that out. So I'd love if we have a couple people try it. I don't know who's here today who hasn't tried it, but having people report back what their experience was next week. You know what I mean? That might be a good, I mean, I think that would be a really good use of people's time, even if it's only to support um, telling us if the guide works. You know what I mean? Like it's useful. So yeah, if any new people are in the call as well, I always like to let people introduce themselves here. So I think we did have some people maybe. So
Hello,
hey,
I
how you
am
doing?
Yash Agarwal. I was a previous LFX mentee at Cloud Native PG and looking to learn more about Kubeflow and the various components that have and contribute here as well.
Awesome. Cool. Are you kind of more of a front end, back end, or everything?
No, I am more interested in front end and pursuing ML ops. Like I want to learn more about ML ops and go into that field. So I
Okay.
was looking into Kubeflow.
Yeah, so more of a user kind of like
Uh,
you'd be using the product in the sense, not so much building it, or are you happy to help? Do you want
like
tasks and to work on? Is that what that's what I'm asking.
Yes, yes, yes. I want us to work on, and I would be first, like you said, setting up the notebooks uh, through the guide you shared just now.
That'd be great if you could give feedback and don't like don't. It's very much the first version of it. So like if you have problems or you want to make it better, that's a great place to contribute. Of course, that's Notebooks V2 as well. So there is a V1, but if you're new to the project, I'd suggest just starting with V2 and helping us out there. And I think it makes the most sense. But that's great.
Sure, sure,
Welcome.
sure. Yes,
Um,
yes. I will
yeah,
give you a review in the next week for sure.
amazing. Thanks, man. Anyone else want to say hi? If people aren't comfortable unmuting, you can either just type in the chat or unmute yourself and oh, there we go. Okay. If not, cool. Let's move on. So, as we're getting closer to release, oh, also, if people are, I just always like to say this as well, if you're a user of Kubeflow, we need to really publicize this more in a place that's not the developers of the project, but we should really start building up this adopters list of notebooks. I think we're kind of avoiding it right now just because there's so much going on, but we should probably be trying to get more people listing themselves here because there's obviously tens of thousands of companies using Kubeflow and notebooks and stuff, so we should probably try and get some of them to put their name here. Um, Okay, let's keep going. So feel free to raise a pull request. Anyone who's listening to this, raise a pull request. If your company says you can do it, just add yourself here, explain how you use it. Be amazing. Thank you very much. Okay, releases. So I think we did actually finalize this. So we do now have a Kubeflow manifest 1.11, but there isn't a Kubeflow/Kubeflow release for 1.11, which could be confusing and cause SEO problems for Google. Like I'm fairly sure that just Kubeflow's website is so dominant that obviously if I search this, it's going to come up here. But this is obviously going to be the website one. But I wonder, just so that it becomes clear that there's never going to be another release. This was the debate, right? There's never going to be another release on this repo. Since we were the last people to control this repo, we're kind of responsible to figure it out. But even though there's no code in it anymore. But I guess the debate, and we won't have it fully now. I just want people to make their suggestions before, and maybe in the next week or two, we'll make a decision and do one of them. But option one, I think, was to do, oh, okay, option one is do nothing, right? So like we just leave it as 1.10 as the final release. Maybe we edit it at the top here so that the description says, hey, this isn't, this is not the release of Kubeflow. This is the release of the legacy notebooks v1 code. Next option is make a final release that literally is just a new tag on the branch which says it doesn't have a number, it says releases have moved or something. Effectively, we call it uh or releases have moved. uh, and then that's that one, and so that's pretty clear what that means. Then the last one would be actually cut the major cal version from as the new versions of Kubeflow are going to be cal versions, meaning 2604, 2608, or whatever the numbers are based off the calendar. We could cut those versions and link them back to the website and treat this actually as this. Of course, that creates one problem, which is this doesn't align with um, uh, this also has the problem of not aligning to the manifest repo, uh, which is the actual source of the version. So like the manifest repo to some extent is the source of truth, right? It's so because it's an aggregate of the manifests of that version. So it's anyway, just people feel free to raise you if you have any strong opinions. You feel free to someone can say it now. I'll just stop talking. If not, then we can discuss it more next week.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm probably in favor of option one. But I don't know, right? How many people really go to Kubeflow? I feel like the website would be like a better place versus going to the GitHub repo, so the information is out there. And I feel like option two or three, like linking to somewhere else, is also weird. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I think like option one or yeah, note on the description or something might be cleanest because everything else feels kind of wonky to me, particularly if you just go to the repo, having under the releases something, I don't know if there's character restrictions there or not, just seems kind of wonky that would yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. That's kind of what option three solves, right? Where it's like we only have to do it twice a year then. It does up because the thing that this does is I know that Google prefers repos that have a release that is recent. If you
Okay.
know what I'm saying. So like this is more like this is always my SEO brain being like this is a very popular repo, obviously this thing. It also will cause us if we add some information here and cut the tag off it, it will force there to be commits as well. You know what I mean? Like so like this is another thing that Google likes. And I know that it's a bit weird, but because this repo, if you just type the word Kubeflow, I presume this is going to be a big high hit. Actually, it might not. No, it is. Yeah, see, right. It's almost number three, right? So that's my other problem is that, if you skip these two, sure you get some of these other ones. Of course, we want our links that we control to dominate, and they do, right? So they're number one and two. And so losing one of the top links that, or like people will click this. Is all I'm trying to say. Like well, that's the website. Sorry, Wikipedia. Sorry, this one. So yeah, that's my only reason where I'm like a little bit hesitant. I
No,
don't know. Anyway,
so like I mean I think option three, if we could get like the actual like release team to like codify that in their process, right? Like that seems like that can be pretty easily scripted or GitHub action just when they're ready to give that Calver date to do it. Um, like I don't think that should be the job of the notebooks team, but I think we can provide guidance and maybe build some automation to then make it a responsibility or a checkbox in the release process. I guess that would be my thought based on your follow-up.
so the one negative I think was that it creates an issue, which is I'm not sure that you can create two releases off the same tag. Because oh no, but that's fine. But two tags can exist on the same commit, so that's fine. Actually, sorry. So yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think you need to create a distinct tag for each one, but you don't need. But you don't need to create a new commit. I'm pretty sure. But I think we should try and create commits for the reason I was saying before. But that's even if it's just to say, I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. I just wanted to highlight that. Anyone else got anything
I'm
they really
just
want to say? Yeah.
I know I just wanted to get into that quickly before we move on. So a thing that I know from a different project, for example, the Rock'em, the AMD graphics stack thing, they have the Rock'em repo contains a little bit of documentation and stuff around. But I think their repository, for example, is the equivalent of what we have in the manifest repository. So
Mm.
they mention all the different like highlights from the sub project releases when they do the empty repo release in the Rock'em repo. So maybe there is a sensible content that we could put into this repository, something like documentation. But
Well,
yeah,
the
this would
roadmap
require your.
is the one that so I don't like this being in here, and I do want to kind of archive this as well because I think the website is a better place for this. But because it's better, SEO is much better on the website. But this is the current one, right? That's kind of changed every release, which is what did we do? I don't really, yeah, I don't know. It was kind of a weird. This one was a strange one that we. So it even got updated for this. See, oh, actually, we didn't update it for the final. Oh no, we did. See, so like, yeah, it's who knows. I agree. This is probably what you're kind of thinking of, right? Almost.
Yeah, so something like that. But
Yeah,
then attached to the notes of the release artifact.
I think it is here, right? So this is, in my mind, the official. There was a release page, like this Kubeflow website page, and then there is a link to the. At least there normally is. And also, why is that ordered wrong? Oh, it's because it's being ordered alphabetically. Ah, that's always kind of a problem. We need to. Oh no, that's a complicated fix there. Anyway, to do automatically, but to do it not automatically, maybe we should make a note in the release thing, especially with the Cal version, which is going to break everything. Oh no, Cal version actually might fix it. Anyway, um, so yeah, see, yeah, roadmap. See, like so that we usually update it to with a link to that page. See, and then we update the title to say not planned. Anyway, so let's move on. I don't want to waste too much time here, but I just wanted to highlight we need to make a decision at some point. It doesn't need to be this week or next week. It's just probably it's going to happen once we do the next Cal version release. So, well, first, maybe, a better way to say it. Okay, I think someone made a PR for this already. So, there is a PR for this. There
Oh
is
yeah,
a
sorry,
PR.
Matthew. That was another thing I wanted to bring up. I can paste that in the notes here. I have it.
Okay, cool. We can hopefully we'll do that later. Okay, let's move on. So dashboard. Let's not do it like a normal one. We just need to go through each of the components, figure out what's happening, uh, that we what's and kind of figure out what our plan is for the new year. Um, well, let's rapid fire through. There's obviously I just want to highlight for everyone. There's three different major areas that the Kubeflow Notebooks working group, which I know it's kind of confusingly named, maintains. One of which is the dashboard, which lives in this repo here, kubeflow/dashboard, one of which is Notebooks 1.0, which lives in the Kubeflow Notebooks repo under this branch here, Notebooks v1. And the last one is Notebooks, oh, I've gone too far. Notebooks v2, which lives in the Notebooks repo under this branch. And you could argue that there is a third category of components, which will probably end up on its own branch soon as well, which is right now on the v1 branch called example notebook service. But this is probably going to get redone completely for v2. So this is another debate, but I won't go into it too much here. But there's two options. First option is treat notebooks v1 as a special case and still keep updating them of v2, because v2 is just going to have a bunch of kinds because this might have its own repo. So I guess actually the big debate is, do these move to their own repo or a branch in this repo? I don't see any other real possibilities. Or I guess they could move under v2, but I don't like that because I really want them to be versioned independently of the, well, I don't know. This is a debate. I guess that is the third option. So the three options are have a have a new one in v2, have a new branch under the notebooks repo, just create a third project under here, or have a whole new repo just like the Kubeflow pipelines people have for their components now. So, because you could view these as components. And anyway, but before we debate that, let's kind of go through the dashboard. So do we know what the current status on this is? So obviously the next step goal is to get a 2.0 release of this, which I don't think was done before the latest release. No, it wasn't, because there was a Kubeflow 1.11 kind of strange release that happened just before the end of the year. So that didn't include any new dashboard repo stuff. So the goal should be to be ready for the KubeCon EU Cal version release with a 2.0 version of dashboard, which can now include a bunch of other things, like we were saying, of most specifically moving some of these network policies and other things out of the manifest repo because they shouldn't really be authored there. But okay, and do anyone know what the current status is? I think there was some people working on it over the holidays even, so
I don't think anyone was working on dashboard stuff. I did before the end of the year, like started to do like I said, very rough draft of a migration guide. This was really just kind of taking the script Kimonis had done and putting it in Word form because I don't think the script makes a few assumptions that I don't think we can rely on or encourage people to use. But this was just a first like rough cut, so I won't pretend it's like ready to be moved over to the main repo, but this was kind of my stab at it. Anyone can, poke holes or throw things at it. That's kind of where I started.
So we're intending to make this a wiki page, or what was the kind of target?
We can move it wherever we want. So yeah, I thought like originally just a wiki page that we can put in the dashboard repo to link to stuff. If we want to make it a markdown file, easy enough as well there, so no real opinion. And I just put it here to start to share before or to discuss.
It makes sense to link it from one of them, I don't know, a file, but it can be a wiki page. I don't know. It just depends on I don't know what the goal is. Because it's going to be in every single, like everyone's going to have to follow it, right? So like everyone who's using Kubeflow will have to follow it. So it might need to be on the website even. I don't know, but like we'll see.
Well, everyone that's using dashboard is, you know what I mean? I guess that's yeah.
Yeah, I mean everyone who's just deployed the manifest is kind of what I mean. Like
Yes.
anyone who's either built their own distribution and their users, or yeah. Yeah, anyway, cool.
I think the
Yeah.
important part on that is that it's somehow visible on the release notes with manifests and not just hidden
For the
somewhere
first Cal
in a
version,
Kubeflow
yes.
dashboard.
In fact, there's going to have to be a big warning, which is that this is a breaking change. You know what I mean? Like, effectively, what this means is that we can have a warning at the top of 2604 or whatever the number becomes, saying this version is actually a breaking change. Like, there is significant changes to major components in this. Of course, we're not removing Notebooks V1 in that version. There's the Cal version, we haven't formalized how it's going to look yet. But my understanding is that major every single point X, like, so that's the month part of it. You got year, month, will be a major version, if you know what I mean. So you're eligible to make breaking changes um, as each component. Because again, it's like Ubuntu, right? Where you've kind of got many different core libraries and components. And that's why we're versioning it in a similar way. Anyway, so this is great, Andy. We should probably follow up on what the status is of getting that Cal version out, because I think that really will guide how much time and when we need to get this stuff done. There isn't a lot left to do here. I mean, obviously there is in terms of migrating to the Angular version of the dashboard, which we're going to have to probably pick up after
Well, I
this.
guess part of this is the moving, the next bullet point, finalize if we are moving. You know what I mean? This consistent labeling. I'm concerned, and I can maybe some of the people that have reached out from the community looking for work, maybe I can see if they can take some of this on because I don't know who's like this isn't super
Which part? Sorry?
complicated. What's that?
Which part were you talking about? Sorry. Oh, this part. Sorry. I was
All
confused.
this, I just don't know who's going to, like, we have enough with notebooks V1, CNCF graduation, and notebooks V2. Like, this isn't hard, but I just don't know who can pick this up.
Yeah, so I think restructuring the manifests, see, it's one of those things where honestly, if someone wants to work with me, you'll learn a lot about how to do manifests, but also I think someone like myself or Andy does need to review it because this is or Kimonis, but he's a bit busy. Like is trying to set ourselves up for a good future because this will be the first release out of this repo, right? So um and again, I guess we could also do another debate, which is should we be versioning the dashboard with the Cal version? You know what I mean? Like probably not. I don't want to do that. Actually, I like it to be separate because that's just in the same way that you can have KDE versus GNOME on, you could imagine a similar situation where there's competing dashboards. Um, Maybe you can't. I don't know. That's a debate. I'm not. Don't quote me on that in the future. Okay. So same things
Isn't
like that
kind
on
of
the
the
repo.
reality that people just live off the manifests repo?
So some people like Red Hat and others build their own dashboards, right? So like it's a thing, right? So but the question is just what is the minimum requirement? So I think this was actually the debate that we were having, which is that I think I still want to put a requirement on Red Hat that they have to, and again, we're going to rewrite the controller, but like profile controller should be like is the thing that we're depending on as notebooks, not dashboard. You know what I mean? Like right now we indirectly depend on dashboard itself, and then you just kind of have to hack in support for your like if you built your own front end, dashboard, you need to like just be the same, you know what I mean, as dashboard is right now. But we don't want that's not really a great plan. I think we should make it more generic than that. Anyway. So for other vendors, I think I want to make it clear what the contract is. Like use, you have to be compatible or just literally use the upstream version of controller and auth, let's say. You know what I mean? And like that's kind of so that's part of what we're going to do once we've got this new repo here. But that's more of a community discussion. But uh, okay. Anyway, let's keep going. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Has anyone got anything about dashboard other than I agree we need to, I think the next steps is now that next version of Kubeflow like platform is 26.xx. We need to work backwards from that date. I'm going to put KubeCon EU. Yeah. And plan the V2 release of dashboard. So like this is probably the main task we need to do. Really for the new year. Now that we don't have to try and rush something out. But we do have a couple of months, but those months are going to be busy. So I'd prefer that we just knock out because, and I know it's like so specifically it's around structuring these manifests differently because I don't want to. You only get one shot really to do a full breaking manifests refactor. Yeah, this is like my main reason for this one. And then the last one, everything else we can just do breaking changes because there'll be an upgrade path. But manifests, it's very hard to. So there probably will be a version 3. I think we did discuss this. Like namely, once we refactor the auth and profile controller into one component, which again will become a hard requirement of all other components, right? That's kind of what I was saying. Oh, and that last part. Okay, anyone got anything here? Let's move on otherwise. I know there definitely was work for V1, so we can talk about that. Messaging one, yes, no. Cool. Okay, so V1. So Notebooks V1 is currently in what I would call maintenance mode, where it's not going to get any major features. So I know that there's been a lot of discussion and requests for specific features, unless those features are in some way related to something which literally breaks existing functionality. Maybe a new version of Kubernetes creates a new type of resource or something that it needs. I don't know. That's fine. That's like a bug fix to some extent, but which even though it's a feature, but the goal right now is to get V1 to be stable, have security updates so that while we're transitioning people to V2, that we're still responding to CVEs, we're still responding to other things like that, and making sure that everything works with new Kubernetes versions. So I know that there's people working on it. Does anyone have any updates here?
Yeah, Liav from Red Hat has been the one driving this, but they're kind of on some other internal work right now, so I'm not sure if they'll be able to join anytime soon. But there's a slew of CVE related fixes that I've just only got back from vacation yesterday. So this afternoon and tomorrow, I plan to start going through those, Matthew. I'll try to sequence this to approve and get stuff mergeable. Like there's going to inevitably need to be some rebases as we're updating dependencies in like the same stuff, but I'll try to, get stuff pushed out and approved, or like my approval for you in an order that you can merge stuff. Then I'll have people rebase and do another batch. And so I'm just this afternoon and tomorrow working through a lot of that. Some of these later ones, I just reached out to this contributor, Ewan. I think kindly they were raising stuff, but I think these are redundant. Those last 3 PRs, plus they were raised against the main branch. So I'm working with that contributor to get those cleaned up. I imagine we'll actually close all of those, but I'll have a clearer picture by end of day tomorrow. And like I said, I should hopefully have at least like 3 or 4 verified and passed over to you to merge.
How did this happen, by the way?
This is like an external contributor, so I think they probably just saw some dependency updates and wanted to help, which is great. But
I'm a bit confused though. How is this ending up in main?
well,
I
they
think
just
they create
raised the PR against main, right? I've
But
made
then,
that
but these,
mistake
as the
before.
default branch.
but doesn't this file not exist?
Well, if you look, there's like there's only 2 commits and 8 files changed. That's interesting. Now I am
That's what I'm
confused.
saying. That's why I'm like, what's it?
Okay, so no, so yes, now I'm
It could be that this is not correct. You know what I mean? Like something about GitHub is confused because this shouldn't have let it happen. Like it should say these are not mergeable. Like these are just like completely fun. You can't usually raise PRs to fundamentally
Oh
incompatible.
wait, this is changes. Can you do changes from all? Did they like do something weird like rebase and like pull in the entirety?
You mean like one of these commits is just like a monster or something? Let's
Yeah,
see
but it's not. Okay, so yeah, I have no idea what that
how that's
actually. I mean,
even working.
yeah, it's not right, but I can't explain why GitHub is treating it like this.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to look. I think this is a case where it's probably so extreme that GitHub is, yeah, because it kind of says 500 commits, right? So like, um, I think probably that GitHub's not reflecting this correctly. Yeah, that's my suspicion. But I guess the only way to find out, just out of interest, would be to look at this branch and just see what's going on. Like, what is its base? You know what I mean? Oh, what might have happened? I have no idea what's going on here. This is very strange. Anyway, moving on. I suspect that they have tried to raise a PR against V1 though. So this
Oh
this
no,
looks.
but you know what? I bet for whatever reason, the way they did this, they're just literally adding these files net new to the main
Oh,
branch.
they are interesting. This is interesting. Anyway, so
So,
whatever.
anyways,
Let's yeah.
ignore. I will work with this contributor. I already reached out to them, so ignore those. But I will be getting the other notebooks because you'll notice these aren't tagged as V1 either.
That's
But
why
all the
they're not. Yeah.
right, yes, that was a very easy thing that I knew something was wrong. Anyways, I'm working on getting these CVEs ones fixed. It'll probably take a couple rounds of reviews because of merge conflicts. But I've spoken with Liav. He's ready for this stuff, and I'll get in earnest started on that tomorrow
Okay, cool. So yeah, the
or
goal
this
here.
afternoon. Sorry.
So what's our goal? So let's just try and have a let's try and have a like let write one of these. I'm just going to actually add this as like like current primary goal. I'll put this under here, this one. Okay. Make the same thing for this one. Okay, so what's the current primary goal of V1? So it's going to be maintenance kind of mode. Probably need to, this is actually the primary goal is help users understand the current state of the project. Like maintenance only, CVE, security, new Kubernetes support, not new features. Next primary goal is, I guess, cut a new, like final, I guess, cut a final, effectively cut a final non-patch version, e.g. like 1.11.0, which will be the version of the last minor version of notebooks 1.0 for inclusion until the last minor, yeah. Because eventually we'll keep doing patch versions, obviously, but we won't do any more breaking changes ever and things like that. And then
And
maybe
that
that
something around, CNCF graduation, I'm not going to say no CVEs because something could always be disclosed tomorrow, but like all known reported CVs as of end of year resolved or something like that.
if we need to disclose like an EOL plan as well, like e.g. like when we plan to stop doing security updates, which will again this one be somewhat dependent on notebooks on V2 release timelines. But like so this I think we should think is there any other core goals that we have? I'm just trying to write the current kind of goal of each. Uh,
So, I mean, with that notebooks V1 one, though, I don't understand how these open PRs that address CVEs fit into any of these primary goals.
okay, so then that's good. I mean, let's add another one. So which is like effectively close, like squash. But this is for like well, actually, we'll just put this under here. This is like the last
Okay.
one, which is ongoing security support, right? Like
Yes. Okay. Yep. That's fine.
security, but bug fixes, and so like continue work to update all packages to versions without known CV high like high plus
I
CVs or
think it's
something.
medium plus by the whatever open SSF standards.
But again, it's our medium as well. Like if we aren't
Yes.
affected by a bug, like not like I'm gonna say like put a note here, which is like a note. This is medium by our calculation, not just that a package we depend on has a medium. Yeah, like just if we don't use the thing that has the vulnerability, we don't really have that vulnerability, and there's no reason to say it's ours. And so the way we do that is it's private, but at least for the automatically detected ones that get for ones that are raised by users, just for reference, by the way, you can raise security issues, and please do by raising in advisories. I'm not going to open that because it might show some things, but like you go to the repo. Do we have? Oh, actually, this is important. Sorry, I just realized we need to make a security file. This is actually something we need to do because it's in here, but we need to make a security file in each of the repo branches that explains it for each of the V1 and V2, I think. Because this is the one that GitHub will kind of jump to, right? When it does this, but I think because eventually Google's going to understand that these are two different projects and it will probably link them separately. So we should, does anyone disagree? Or in the same way that we have a contributing, or we don't have a contributing guide.
Is the security disclosure different in the two branches?
I guess it's not. Yeah, that's true. I guess it's not. But that's what I'm wondering if, in the same way that we have actually, no, we do have a contributing guide. So it's like on the V2 branch, we have a contributing and development guide, but this one just says, look at the main one and the development guide. You know what I mean? And we can also maybe put a security reference. I think we should do this for V1 as well. And then just so that if people look at this branch, they don't get confused about, oh, there's no security policy, or something. Because I just don't want people raising issues. Or like the main thing I want to stop people doing is raising issues to disclose security issues. We need one for V2 at least. We very much need one for V2. So let's put that as a task down here. And I need to move on because we've only got like 10 minutes and we need to do V2. Okay, anything else about V1 other than the primary goals that are? Okay, I'm just gonna bold these ones. Okay. I'm gonna make one note here, which is repo health or repo branch health. So add security and contributing mark MD files in the V1 branch. Link to the main branch once. Okay. Well, contributing should actually have some more information, but cool. Okay, cool. Let's keep going. So these are actually things that people can help with, by the way, like newer contributors as well, if they want to learn how to do these things. Okay, anyone else got anything about V1? I guess not. Let's go V2. So V2, obviously we might go a tiny bit over in the time, but if people have to leave, that's fine. Obviously, it's very, very much okay. Okay, so what's the status? So let's okay, we've kind of got some. Okay, we were kind of doing top priority stuff as well. Let's just add this here while we're here. Okay, so what is the current primary goal? I guess, well, what's happening here at the top, by the way? Okay, sure. Oh, I can't actually click that button because it's in the way. There we go. There we go. Okay, so we can talk about these in a second. But what is the current primary goal of V2? It's to get the, okay, actually, let's work. Okay, I think we need to formalize the plan as well. So we need to it's the same way, it's the reverse. I think this probably is true. Help users understand the current state of the project is actually something we need to do publicly here, but it's the other way around, which is, we're actually not maybe not the right way to put it. We just need to, let's make a plan, even if we don't end up having to stick to it. Let's make a plan, put it on the website. I don't know, which is and it should be related to this. Include information on V2 migration times here. So this is the same idea as this, but in reverse. So probably it's going to be one page on the website or repo or whatever that explains the current plan is to, or reissue, I don't mind how we do it, is to, my current plan in my mind, and if people can have suggestions, if not, is to have the first version of Cal version Kubeflow include a V2 alpha of some kind. And I know that we talked about it here around making sure that we make it clear that the overall app is an alpha in addition to specific features which may or may not be an alpha. So there might be a beta level feature. There might be one or two beta level features available in the alpha version of V2. I know that's a bit confusing, but what I mean by that is it's around a level of stability and expectation for users. So the spawning of notebooks is probably unlikely to significantly change after even the first release. Like it could, but that's the idea of beta, right? It could still change, but it's not. It's less likely to. Anyone got? So that's my first one. So like not that, it's just like make public statements explaining the release timeline and migration from V1, probably in the same place as where we explain V1 EOL plan.
Does it make sense to externalize this planning, like to have it separately on a website or something? I would imagine that having a link to a milestone or something is like much more fitting for the dynamic nature
So
of the
it's more
planning.
like this is a timeline. So it's not about specific tasks. This is like specifically times. So it's like, okay, in March we're gonna have an alpha. Like this is our current plan. Like it might change, but we can put it
Okay.
somewhere in
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's more like so that, oh, I'm a company, I'm going to have to migrate this year. You know what I mean? Like this, like by the end of the year, V1 will not be supported. I can pretty much guarantee that. You know what I mean? So like the goal is that that's so my current in my head idea is that if we all have agreed as Kubeflow, which we haven't finalized yet, to do two major releases a year, beginning of the year, end of the year, KubeCon, then KubeCon EU will get an alpha, and KubeCon NA, end of the year, will get uh, a GA, you know what I mean, of V2. And then that version we won't be supporting probably, and then we might support the bug fixes until the next EU version in 27, you know what I mean, of V1, but we may or may not. Like that one, that's what I'm saying. We need to decide that because that's like a commitment on our behalf as to what we're actually doing. You know, are we effectively saying that you need to migrate in end of 2026 or not? You know, like I think that we probably should say that, but that's you know, um, like like working plan is like for like elf like 2603 2053. Whoa, what the heck? Uh, has like GA like supported notebooks 1.0, alpha notebooks 2.0, and then Kubeflow 26 like 110 would be EOL notebooks 1.0, like no more patches. Uh, not like EOL like not included. And then
I'm not a fan of not having an overlap here, so I think it makes
but
sense
that's
to
this
have
period,
one
right?
release. Yeah, but like we can't expect like proper testing if it's just added as an alpha.
Since we're only doing two a year, I mean, this is a good debate, right? This is why I wanted to have this debate. So yeah, so uh, like GA support, they will
So
definitely have this, but yeah, notebooks
So
2.0.
the reason I'm kind of interjecting here is that especially with the KFP migration from 1 to 2, for a good while there was these two versions were kind of supported next to each other, and the V1 was put like EOL without like having actual feature parity, and I think that's not a great situation to be in. So I think we should ensure to have actual feature parity until we deprecate V1,
I agree
because
with that,
otherwise
with the
people will
exception
just
of
not
features. Yeah,
no, otherwise, people will just not upgrade their installation, is at least what I'm gathering from a few of the more enterprise people.
I think for notebooks, I think they're much more likely to. I think the issue with pipelines is that it is also an API. And so the V2 is actually an API. So from a user perspective, V2 is just better. Like when even the alpha is out to some extent, like the things that won't be, and this is kind of what I was saying, where the features that are feature parity with V1 might actually not be alpha. They might be more like GA or beta even. Depends on what we get to in the next 3 months, right? But probably not GA. But like I agree it's unfortunate, but don't forget what this means, by the way, is we will be having patch releases. So you could argue there could be a Kubeflow, like if we say 0.0, you know what I mean? Like, or you know what I mean? Maybe, I guess there's also possible that we end up having a Kubeflow 26, like, no, I think the 2 yearly releases is really good for Kubeflow overall. We just need to fit into that. So I guess what you're saying is this is EOL. I guess let's just say that what you're saying is what it is. Like, I don't like it because it means we have like 6 more months of supporting V1. But yes,
So I think a way that reflects what I'm thinking well is to have it deprecated in 2610 and then EOL in 27.3.
I see what you're saying. Like, but what level of patches are we doing there? I guess we're still doing them. Like, that's kind of what I'm saying. Yeah, who knows? Like, uh, like secure. We could also just say security only. Like, no bugs at that point. You know what I mean? Like, we'll see. Um, and then it's EOL. Like, GA. We're gonna say this, right? Notebooks. Like, also, actually, honestly, it's still going to be 2.0, but that's the question as well. Like, we might, at this point, this is going to have been so long that I swear it's probably going to be 2.1. You know what I mean? Like, like that's honestly probably what will happen here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no way that it's not, or like 2.1 plus. But again, it's actually a better way to say it is V2. You know what I mean? Like, just like V2. It's not, we could have any version here, but yeah. Okay, but until we have a GA, this is because as soon as you got GA, then we have a 2.0. So we will call that 2.0. So I'm going to say the 2.x. Okay. EOL not supported notebooks. V1. Sorry.
Yeah, I think the interesting part then is that it's not only not supported, but I think I would remove it from the manifest at that point. So it's
Oh yeah, it's
actually
not
like
there. Not, yeah,
without.
not included. Like not included, maybe is a better way to say. Yeah, I agree. But I think this one is going to be an optional, like it's more like optional inclusion. You know what I mean?
Or if it's in a state where this can be done, I think it would make sense to default to this in 2610.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. That's literally what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Yeah. Default included. And so I'm sorry, everyone. It is a little bit over time. So if people want to stay around, they can. I know that people might have. If anyone has anyone who has to leave, do they have any tasks that they specifically want feedback on or things to work on? I know we probably should have done this in another. Uh, oh, okay. Let's keep going. Okay, let's move on. So what are the other ones we've got? Okay, for this year. So I guess we're working back from. This is kind of the same as that, really, right? So that means we then need to figure out what the offer is. And that we can put this one as optional include, and it is supported as well. Okay. And then this is default include. I guess we can debate. Do we want to have actually in this first release? I'm sure we don't want it to be included by default. Yeah, we probably not. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to say then, yeah, security. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Okay, so sorry that you. Okay, I'll let you. Oh wait, is there anyone got anything more important than this? These two ones, Jenny, you do have to leave probably. So
I
you wanna-
think Jenny's discussion on Dependabot is like the starter issue thing. I think we have a few things I can work on, plus this dashboard issue and things of that nature. I think we can just I'll update that with line items and comment what we're going to do in the short term. So I feel good about that. And so Jenny, if you want to kind of bring up, and the reason we put Dependabot in here, Matthew, I know you'd kind of spoken about some hesitancy to do that, but maybe if we capture on recording, if we're not ready to merge this, kind of what clear prereqs we're interested in to do that, just so we're all on the same page. Sorry to steal your thunder, Jenny. Please correct me in any way I misspoke.
No, thanks, Andy. Yeah, that all sounds great. Yeah, I just linked there like a reference to the upstream and the Kubeflow model registry dependent about YML, and there's this working great over there. So yeah, I think like Andy said, it would just be helpful to kind of hear if there's anything that's blocking us from implementing this and merging it, and just kind of getting a clear kind of next steps on that.
So is this for front end specifically?
This is everything. So that's front end, back end. It tracks the Go modules and GitHub Actions. So it's kind of a bit of everything there.
So I mean, I'm not against it. I don't think I ever made any kind of intent. If I didn't intentionally send any message that we shouldn't do this. But there are other obviously toolings that are available, so we could have reviewed those. But the main question I have is, does this work when you're dealing with this weird branch structure that we have? You know what I mean? Does Dependabot handle it? You know what I mean? Like that's my only kind of major concern. It probably does, but and if not, we need to pull request upstream because it's going to need to support it, or we need to move to a tool that does support it. You know, that's kind of my uh, perspective here. The only other thing as well, though, is that while we're in this early, actually, maybe what I made, okay, the statement I probably made is that during alpha, we might not want this. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of probably what it was, which was that um, these PRs might just get ignored and get spammy kind of in the way unless I know that there's a way to make them a bit more controlled nowadays. Is that right, Jenny? If you looked at it, like where weekly, oh yeah, stuff like this, right? See,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You can like group certain packages together and yeah, do kind of different things there.
how much, how does it, uh, how does it work when you do that? When you say grouping them?
So like if like for example, there's like a front end package that has like three separate things and they're all coming from the same place, like you can group all three of those dependency updates together in one PR rather than having them spam every time for like each individual package
Okay,
in a
actually,
repository.
I just remembered the other thing. So yeah, I get what you're getting at, Andy. So I think the requirements to do it, I would say, would be we need end-to-end tests. Like there's no universe in which we have a dependent without end-to-end tests, right? Yep, on every component, including the true end-to-end tests that we're just about to merge in V2, which is um, initially there's no tests, so we need to add some. But like that, which runs deploys a Kubernetes cluster, deploys backend, deploys controller, deploys front end, and then uses it. You know what I mean? Automatically to some extent. That is the minimum, just to make sure that someone doesn't accidentally completely balk the entire project by merging a PR. Then that doesn't need to be fully comprehensive testing, I think, but there's a minimum I'd require for automated testing because otherwise, all I guess what you're because the alternative would just be that there is an issue raised and we don't actually merge the PR, which I think is a bit weird, right? Like, do we actually intend? Okay, that's a question as well. Are we going to use dependabot to as an indicator that there is a thing, or are we going to actually merge the dependabot PR? You know, is it? Yeah, we probably would merge the PR, right? That's so.
I
Um,
think ultimately, yeah, if we're going to do this, we should like merge the PR. So I think that the two things, and I can update this issue, and people can contradict me if they don't think, I think are fair is we put this on hold. We want to internally, and Jenny, I can talk with you, right? I think it'd be good to include like a screenshot or more guidance, and we can review. Christian kindly just pasted in. There are target branch configurations, so we probably want to like get this set up on a fork and show some screenshots of how this would look simulating our repository. So let's kind of get a more opinionated stance of here's how we're going to configure Dependabot. And then secondly, say we want at least a happy path, end-to-end test across the components before this merges too. And I think we can like act on that like very, very soon. Like by end of month, I'd love to see that this all working in happy harmony. So this isn't going to go into limbo, but I think that makes sense that like if we're going to try to get these things merged in, we should like have some semblance, even though it won't be perfect, the framework of code has ran that makes us feel like this version is good, ergo we're going to merge this PR. I think that all sounds fair.
but also we need to really define these groups and rules based off branches as well, because like we're gonna have the PRs could get really messy if they're not like obviously the PRs will get labeled automatically, so it's probably fine. But like I want to make sure that I know that it does this, but like that it closes PRs if a new major version comes out and it's going to jump two versions now. If we ignore it for a couple of weeks, and then this is actually a really interesting project for a new contributor. I think almost partially we should scaffold it, but like then say um like making some human decisions about it'll help them learn as well actually about we should do some as well like as reference, but like what groups of dependencies would always be updated together. You know, like we know that, controller runtime and things like that are always going to be updated at the same time as the kube API probably, and things like this. And so for the backend and controller, and then for the front end, I'm not sure. So that's a perfect case for you guys to do the front end. And then um, but I think we should get this in as soon as possible. Christian, go ahead.
Yeah, just a question. Is the plan to also use Dependabot for the dependencies in the Docker files and all of that for the
No, definitely not. So, so that is another comment I wanted to make, but I almost forgot. Thank you. Which is example notebook servers. It is much more complicated. You should not treat them as dependencies in the same way because they are examples first. But second off, the thing we should be providing is the ability for users to create environments for their users with the versions that their tools need. Because we don't know, like the policy we had previously was that whatever the latest widely adopted version of a Python package at the time of release, because the main thing you're talking about here was is like, oh, PyTorch comes out with a new version. What version of PyTorch are we including in the example server? Well, right. So in the new version of V2, we might actually have a skew of versions just by the nature of how the kind structure works. We might build for the 3 major versions because currently we just built for the version that's supported, but V2 is now able to handle many more image options for a particular kind, if you will. So it's more reasonable that we say, we have the most three widely adopted versions of PyTorch as the versions we include pre-built images for or something. But what that means though is that you can't go then because PyTorch old version might not support Panda's new version. So we can't just do even if there's a CVE in old Pandas, we can't force that just literally is not compatible necessarily. And the Pandas is an example where it probably will work, but there are many other dependencies you could imagine. So, but I think those are the user's artifacts. They're only examples upstream. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of so we want to build our tooling as good as it can be so that it can be used by end users to make their own images. That's kind of my perspective. But yeah, I don't know if anyone got any opinions there. So yeah, I think seeing a concrete test proof of concept, I think Andy is probably the best step here. So I know we're 10 minutes over, so I won't go too much more over it. Has anyone else got anything for V2 that we want to talk about? I know we've got the priorities, we could go through them, but we are getting quite over time now. So
I think just for the sake of recording in a quick thing, we did at the end of the year get a couple stub PRs merged. There's a handful, a couple other stubs that we want to work on. The volumes management API will be the next thing that we're really kind of reviewing that's complicated. And then after kind of getting, I think we're very, very close to having all of our APIs stubbed out, or at least like agreeing on the contract for the stubs. So hopefully by, later half of this month, we'll then start writing up issues to like these API suites as they're like very thin or like kind of non-existent mock data getting returned from these stubs. But marching forward on continuing on that with obviously the UI relying on just the auto-generated client. So it's using the stubs, and when we include actual business logic there, it'll use those. And so I myself, kind of one of the primary things, as Matthew had alluded to earlier, is eventually using our project board this year, so help us God, use the project board to be able to communicate status. And so I'll be working over the next week and a half to make sure we kind of have this loose, march to an initial release fully articulated in GitHub, obviously reviewing with Matthew and many others to make sure we feel good about that. And that'll kind of give us a full view of work to be assigned out. So, look for updates to come there to really kind of make this plan whole. And that aligns with one of those primary purposes, Matthew was saying for V2, which is communicate to community when we can really do this stuff. So let's get the work written up, spec'd out, and then we can start to put dates and goals on things to give, outside people not part of the community confidence on when they can expect this stuff and bring it home.
cool. Okay. I'm not against staying recording just a little bit longer if people are interested. Of course, let's just treat this as the end of the normal meeting for now. But I think there's probably a couple more things we should talk about for people who are willing to stay around a little bit. So if you don't feel like anyone needs to stay or keep watching now unless you really want to. So what I'm going to try and do now is try and make sure that people have tasks for V2 for the next few weeks. So people don't have to come to every meeting if they don't want to. So. Okay, so the current status, as we said last, so feel free to do that. So, feel free to drop. Okay, so is anyone here got a task that they're blocked by? So stand up kind of stuff. Is anyone got for V2 specifically? Where was it? I think we went there. We need to go up there. So there were some people who. So Jenny, obviously you were working on that. So I think your next step there is to work with Andy for getting a config set up and then proposal, and that'll be great. It'll be an amazing thing. So amazing. Okay, any other things? You said you made this secrets modal, so have you got everyone ready for that? Someone's reviewing that, or?
Yep, I think, yeah, Charles just left one last review there, so I'm gonna just address that and that should be good to merge.
Cool, awesome. Okay, so this is just using the new secret stuff. Um, I certainly, another task I'd love to give you for the next time, if you once you get time, is now that everything's deployable end to end easily, hopefully we can start being a bit more critical. I mean, I know that there's some stubs that need to go in as well, but like there was some weirdness going on with some of the volumes that were just a little bit of a weird user experience. I think we're gonna, if we, as soon as now that we have people using it, people are gonna start raising issues, being like, hey, this is kind of weird. And I think there is some strangeness to the current flow of creating. Uh, like it just seems a bit clunky right now. Like not just UI. I mean, just it seems like there's some misunderstandings of certain features. I know that we talked about this, Andy, but like volume, like there was a misunderstanding of what the volume API even was. You know what I mean? Like that like the home directory is a PVC name, for example, not a path, which I think people were thinking it was a path uh, for the CRD. So anyway, I think like battle testing it and maybe creating some flows where we take a video of using it, we'll run into these problems. You know what I mean? If we write out like I'm a user, I'm gonna do this things, like here's my flow, and then we'll very quickly realize, oh, there's something we assumed that's actually probably what we should do. We should probably agree on a set of flows that are required, and those can become our tests as well, by the way. But then so start with empty cluster, create workspace kind or upload it using kubectl. Use workspace kind of Jupyter type to create a, a CPU only one, and like these kind of things, and then like just sanity check our flows. You know what I mean? From a user experience flow perspective. I don't know if that's your area, so I mean, sorry, I'm not assigning it to you, but someone needs to do that because when I started deploying it and looking at it, I was like, oh, there's some strangeness going on. Yes. Sorry to throw that at you. I'm just if it's probably it's a collection of people who need to work on that, but
That's a good call out though, thank you, yeah.
and then we can just directly translate those to tests, like because then we like, make sure we don't regress in the ability. Of course, you could argue it's hard because we might move buttons around, so we don't need to encode that logic into a test, but we do want to make sure that, for example, home directories and every API element is treated correctly. You know what I mean? Like that it's not being misinterpreted as just because the API would accept something doesn't mean it shouldn't accept something if it's bad, but you know what I mean? Like yeah. So that's more of a user story mapped onto actually using the product. So we should like validate manually at first that user story one is actually doable with the current state of the project. That's probably the best way to phrase that. Okay, if anyone wants to help with that, I think we can probably start almost a little bit of a subgroup for that. Hey, Christian.
So what I can do, and this is something that I thought about, is do like the whole test setup and then improve the contribution guide to be a bit more of like a how can I set this up, and setting this up as part of the contribution potentially, and then do a little bit of smoke testing on the regular workflows that I know from the other instances.
So yeah, those are unlikely to work just given how alpha it is. I wouldn't put too much stock in that flow, even something as basic, because that's priority two here. Even something as basic as creating and connecting to a notebook will not work right now with that guide. So the reason I just want to highlight one thing is that guide does not currently, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, suggest that you install Istio when it would definitely need to install Istio for it to be usable. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's the downside or discussion point on what is the minimum development experience. And the code merges now does not pull Istio into the mix because that can be more confusing if things don't work. And so our front end kind of communicates directly to the back end, which is not how it would
But
work
we're
in
going to
any.
have to do it. I think we discussed last year that we have to make the development guide include Istio. This is literally not possible not to, right?
I forget where we landed on that, but I mean that's a reasonable interpretation.
Yeah, Christian.
But given that especially the manifest repo is easily deployable into a kind cluster, wouldn't that be like a middle ground? It doesn't have all the fancy, what was the name again? Tilt features, but still it would be something for people to check out and then maybe build and have like a full.
So, so that's different. So for once there's a released product, the alpha would be that, yes. But tilt is necessary in this case because the idea is it's for when, oh, I'm making a pull request. I want to make a change and then just run tilt up and test it. You know what I mean? So like that, so it's like because there are some pretty complicated steps to go from I don't like I want it to literally be one command to some extent for going from a non-released version of the app. The issue is creating a release, building images, doing all these other things is actually quite complex and making the manifest, you know what I mean? So rather than making users have to do that for themselves for every dev, it's like what you're saying is correct, but I don't think it's related to this part. So this part is more like in the future, tilt thing will only be used for people making contributions.
The thing is why I mentioned this is that if we like backwards reinvent what manifest already has, like bit for bit in the tilt universe, then it's also a lot of maybe like duplicated work. But
Well, the
yeah, I agree
manifests
that
just
it's like
depend on us, though. They just depend on us, don't they?
yeah, they do.
So then, in the sense that they literally are using the same things, I believe, and if correct me if I'm wrong, the tilt literally deploys the manifests as targeted by the manifest. Sorry, the tilt deploys the manifests from the same slash path as the manifest upstream does. Well, not yet, but you know.
Well, I was gonna say there is no, I mean, the whole manifest, I've never actually done this, right? My understanding is we kind of like vendor and take our manifests from our repo and push them up into the manifest directory. So it would be not the exact same files, but the same content.
Let's just quickly show on the screen what I'm saying because it'll make a bit more sense. So if we follow the guide, so we go down to tilt. So these are just like how to do pull requests and stuff. But this one is like, okay, yep. So you've installed these three dependencies. Well, these dependencies, you've got a kind cluster. You've got kind installed. You don't have a kind cluster. You've got Docker and tilt installed in kubectl. Then you literally can just go to the root directory of this repository, go to cd into developing and then make tilt up, and you should end up with whatever the current state of your local directory is. You should end up with a Kubeflow Notebooks v2 running on a clean kind cluster. If you can also use an existing kind as well. So what this does, and we can just go to it just to kind of see. So make tilt up. So if we go to make file here under here, it's a make file. It's pretty basic. It just runs for everyone. Tilt up has some dependencies because it's going to make sure that you have tilt version correct. It's going to make sure that it's going to install, ideally check tilt actually checks that you have a kind cluster and stuff as well running, or maybe creates it. I forget exactly. Maybe set up, oh yeah, sorry. This one is that. So it's nested this way. So it goes, this is tilt up depends on cert manager, which depends on kind, which starts the cluster with this script here. So we won't go into that. Just all that's going to do is it's going to create a kind cluster locally if one doesn't exist. It's going to prepare it. But as soon as and customize, then let's check what that one does. That one just installs the tool, customizes it because that's a dependency. Now this is where it's interesting. So it's quite different here than the manifest, but in the end, it still uses the same path as this path here under. Like, so for example, workspaces, this is for the
We're in
controller.
controller right now, yeah.
Yeah, so if you go to controller, manifests, customize, in the same way that the upstream manifests copy this whole folder effectively, they just copy this whole folder from the tagged version into the manifest repo. Of course, this is going to be a little bit of a problem because obviously there's three folders. So we need to actually discuss how that's going to look because this is the first time that Kubeflow has ever had these components might as well be the same component, from a strict perspective. But because up until recently, while we did have different components that had different manifests, we never had one component that had three manifest targets. You know what I mean? So this is going to be a question for the manifest repo as to how they should vendor these, but that's a separate discussion. But so if you see what it does, in the end, you will always have to apply these three targets, Istio for controller, and then down here, wherever it is, Istio for backend, and Istio for front end. So these are literally the
Well, but
same.
yeah,
So
right now though, you'll notice the back end and front end aren't deploying Istio. We're just deploying base, right? But that was the discussion we had that we probably need to pull in Istio and make that representative of how this would run in production.
so in some sense, Christian, to answer your question, hopefully, does this answer your question or not? Like,
Yeah, it does.
cool. Because I'm just making sure that we are on the same page here. Because I agree, the manifests are because the manifest, whole goal of the manifest is to just aggregate these. The goal, in my mind, the goal has always been, and it's in the charter of the manifest group, which is to not author anything new, but to other than the concept of an aligned platform, but to uh, pull those manifests upstream, and if anything is not in those upstream manifests, to push them back to upstream and then pull them back into a version rather than making a patch or something like that, you know. But yes, so if people have suggestions, this is just a good introduction for how this actually works as well. And so the reason why it's all in this weird tilt file, this for example, why this is here, is why it's also at this folder is because it affects everything. Because you see these kind of loop over 3 different components, they're separate. And then what this does here is these are things to like mutate changes that we need to make it work. Of course, these are actually not necessary. You see these to-dos here once Istio is there. But it has Tilt does some magic, and so for example, this is always running in a Docker file. So even for the backend controller, so when you make a change under, let's say, I don't know, internal, and then control loop, and then make some kind of Go file change here, what will happen is Tilt will see that change. It will look at all the dependencies that are affected by that. So in this case, it's watching for the controller folder. It's going to see, oh, I need to rebuild this Docker file because that was, and then it's going to do a kind cluster load, and then it's going to do a rollout in this case. In the future, we can even do it in place replacement, but we didn't do that for the first release because what I mean by in place replacement is it literally just copies in the, it's kind of magic, but it copies in the new compilation of Go and then just kills the old internal process and it's kind of crazy. I think we actually might do that already for front end, do we? No. Yeah.
Yeah. Front end, we are doing that because the
Live
Webpack
update,
times and
yes.
stuff. It was like significant that it was worthwhile to do this because there was a bunch of hacks otherwise.
So see, just for reference, live update. See, this one's for front end. And so this was what this is saying is that these are the actual component, because again, the front end is just HTML when it's rendered, right? So it to some extent. Actually, it's not in this case. That is on the production build, but sorry, in the dev build, it does have a node. It's still running Node.js in the back end in the dev version, so that you get all the dev tools and things like that. Okay, cool. Let's go back to this. So, anyone got any comments about that part? So the reason we were talking about that is because I think it was under, oh, it's under Peeps. I think it was under Jenny's task, which was that we need to make sure that. Oh, I'm trying to remember exactly how we got there. Do you want to remember? It's an important task to discuss, but
no, I thought we were just in general talking about the need of like end-to-end testing and verifying flows and scenarios, right? There's kind of a manual exercise of do we think all the user scenarios we want to target can be accomplished through the UI, but then there's that automated, and then we need to write tests as all the
but you can't
pieces
even do that. Yes, because right now there's some piece missing, which is SDO. And so we need to get that in, but then it raised the question of, wait, why are we redoing what's happening in upstream manifest? Well, it's because the upstream manifest is just using our downstream stuff anyway. So, and that's how we ended up there. Okay, I remember now. That's good. Okay, cool. It's early morning, forgive me. Okay.
Yeah, also thanks for all the explanation. I didn't mean to derail it.
No, this is great because it's on the recording now for people. We can use it as a reference. And so, okay, so I know Hashad, you had some things. I don't want to keep you around if you don't need to be. So do you, I know you made a design PR. Sorry to throw something on you. Hopefully you're still around.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I created it as a markdown. I just wanted to know, like, would we like to put this as a pull request or somewhere in, like, how would we like to do this? So
So
for
what
now, I just added as,
when you say
like,
markdown, is this like
yeah, that's
this?
the markdown file where, like, we discussed everything in a Google Doc, right? So I converted it into a markdown, and I just placed it there. But would we like it as a, like, inside as a pull request so that everyone else can
So
see
I
it?
think we do issues, right? So this should be this is a guess. because it's not going to be done straight away. Well, I guess that's the
Mm.
question as well. Like it might be. This is a relatively self-contained task as well, so I guess it's one of those ones that
Yeah.
could be for a contributor. But it is required for production release though, for GA, or even for not for alpha, but for GA definitely. So, because it's feature parity, otherwise we don't have feature parity with V1. So it's better than V1, but it's so I love this stuff. So that's very hard to view though. So I don't like it being in an attached markdown. That's bad.
Yeah.
But
Either I can put it as a gist, or if you want, I can open it as a pull request in a
so
docs
a gist
folder
would be the
somewhere.
minimum so that people can see the diffs, but I
Yeah.
since this needs to be an issue, right? So I would I guess Andy, it's up to you. How do you think this fits? We've got three concepts
Yeah,
we're
I'll work.
tracking.
I mean, historically how we've done this, yeah, I'll create we have like this agree on architecture issue where we kind of discuss on our Tuesday calls to initially agree on the parameters of this. Once we agree with the markdown file content, we update that issue with the proposal as a comment on the issue, consider it closed, and then look to implement or stub as it needs. So
But is
I'll
this a feature? Is it an epic? Is it a feature?
Generally speaking, I've been doing this as this proposal work comes as a feature under well, we already have the feature of implementing the backend. I view this proposal as a task, just the step zero of implementing the backend. So if we look at the existing culling epic, there is a backend task under it already.
Well, so we really just stopped
The
using the word culling. I think we renamed it in this proposal, didn't we? Like, what did we name it to? Hashad, do you remember?
Oh, we did specifically say, right? We are still calling it as activities, and inside activities, we are doing the rest of the things.
That's what I'm saying. So the
Right.
actual feature is activity, sorry, and then
Yeah.
culling, it was culling the word, or no, it's not. It's actions. Because again, we don't have the word culling at all now. It's that
Yeah. Not in
yeah.
the description. Yeah.
For people who are confused, sorry, let's talk about this next week, Hashad, so we don't go through the actual
Yeah.
proposal on the meeting here because we need to discuss it on the other meeting. But the concept of what we're talking about here is that V2 is going to have very good admin controllable rules for making sure that certain things happen under certain conditions of notebooks. And what I mean by that is for the notebook that your definition of not active is happening on, let's say. So you could define not active as not using GPUs. Say you have someone requesting a big GPU server, but they're actually not using it. Even if they're using their notebook, you could still define that as inactive or something like that. And there's a bunch of other cool features that you can say, I don't want you to ever cull things in this namespace. Colors, I'm still using the word. Pause, or by this use. No, so you can imagine various logical things, but they're structured very similarly to our new Andy. What was it called? ACL.
compatibility selectors.
Yeah, but what was that called again? We named that a different thing as well, right? Um,
Yeah, just rules. That's what we had them as written, right? RBAC rules and then
so
activity
I'd love to
rules.
get those issues. So that rule one, I think, that one is planned for the alpha, right? That first rules.
Well, we want to get the stub. We can stub the APIs there and
Yes.
even implement. We could implement the APIs, but the CRD changes, we've kind of paused on that to hit some other things because that's really gnarly. So I don't know if that feature will be in alpha or GA, even though we'll have the API and front end structured to leverage it. I just don't know if we'll actually get the rules based support in the CRD.
So yeah, I think the front end needs. I think what we were going on, yeah, was that the actual CRD would be there. The front end would listen to the back end, but the back end, which is where all the actual complexity is there, I believe, because it's not actually the controller. The controller is just ignoring that field effectively.
Yes.
Which typically what we're talking about here is ACL rules effectively. So what that means is saying users of this namespace are allowed to request this pod option, like say GB200 GPU, but users in this namespace, because it's for a different team, they don't need $1 million servers. So like this kind of thing. And so it's quite cleverly done based off the context. We use the word context. So effectively in the front end, it needs to be smart enough, and this needs to be done because there's a lot of iterations and it dramatically impacts how the front end flows work, is that it needs to assume that sometimes not all options are valid. And so what it will have to do is say, first select a workspace kind, right? PyTorch one or something, then Jupyter PyTorch. And then you're like, okay, you're presenting the user a list of options for images and then or pod configs. And so what will happen is the admin could say, these are not compatible. Like this is a ROCm image and a ROCm and an AMD pod config. Obviously, those are compatible, but I don't want you requesting an NVIDIA GPU with a ROCm image. That doesn't make any sense. So the way that you encode that information in the kind is by creating a rule which selects on the label of the option. So a rule that selects a label of an option and says, select image config AMD, select pod config label AMD, and disallow if they're not equal, effectively. And so there's a nice CRD spec for this. So the CRD spec will be written because it's pretty much finalized. The front end will be calling the backend stub correctly, but the backend stub will just always return all the options. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how I think the alpha, what we were planning. Is that right, Andy?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So again, for context, the purpose of this is to make sure that the front end in the future is capable of not showing incompatible ones. And to be clear, when we say not showing, we don't have any intention of doing security restrictions here. This is only a metadata to prevent, if the user has direct access to the CRD, they're going to be able to request an incompatible one because you could change the rules. So we're not going to retroactively disallow, if a configuration that is currently applied becomes invalid or is manually applied by a user, it will be allowed, if you know what I'm saying. Like when I say applied, I mean I create a workspace that does request an NVIDIA GPU with an AMD pod config. Then we're not going to say no, but there's nothing that's going to stop you. The only thing that's going to happen is in the UI in the future, it'll be grayed out by default, and you'd have to tick advanced mode, allow incompatible configs. And then in the very distant future, we can discuss what it means, if anything, to have hard, you're never, like even for the front end to fully disallow. Like, and again, I'll add one more piece of information, which is that there's an additional context, which will actually be user. So actor, like the word actor is used where it's saying, so you could say that users who are privileged can request expensive GPUs. And so even if I have access to a namespace, that namespace might have a GB200 cluster running in it, but I can't actually create one if I was creating one myself. You know what I mean? Like that could be a situation. Anyway, that's just an interesting concept. Okay, let's keep going. We're quite a bit over again now, so again, feel free people to drop. Has anyone else got a task they haven't got? So that's the goal. The goal should be to make sure that people have tasks. So what is who hasn't gone and wants to go? Charles, I guess you have wrote something here.
Yeah,
Sorry to
so
yeah.
yeah, sorry, multitasking a little bit here, but I'm just working on rebasing my code. We'll probably merge Jenny's work for the secrets model first, and then start rebasing my code after hers, and after hers go in, and we'll see from there. But overall, it's a very smooth process at the moment. No blockers around here.
So when you say this, this one was merged, but then you're just talking. Is there any particular PI you're?
We only merged one. There was one that was blocking both me and Jenny, and we unblocked that. So now we're just getting everything merged accordingly. We have two.
Just
I have two more, and Jenny has one PR.
for my context, was the one that was blocking the secret stub, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But that one
So
was
that
unblocked already. Yeah.
these two here, yeah.
Yeah.
So if people want to understand what we're talking about, there was this PR that took a bit of time to go through because it turned out to be quite complex, was adding the ability for the backend to interact with secrets. Again, some of them are stubs and not real. But I think just for a reason that took a bit longer than normal and in the future it will take less time, is that I think maybe rightly in this case, but we kind of we treated validation as part of the stub. And since validation it walks so close to the line of actually building the actual API, because interpreting all the possible valid states is effectively making the API to some extent. And we did have to redo how the validation works. So I guess the debate for the future is, do stubs include validation? And I think this is a debate for Andy and me and Hashad and others to have. But like, it's just this is just where we just ran into some stuff. And so, for example, the way that validations work on this is that you've got types. Uh, mm, and also we had to add audit as well, like there's this feature actually. But so there's now an audit concept where you know who did what for every update and every user as well. So we need to go back and add those audit ones to the workspace one. Do we have a task for that, Andy, and everything?
No, this is part of my over the next week, like capturing all of these things. My knee-jerk reaction is like, yes, this did take a long time because there was a lot of like boilerplate that hadn't ever been discussed before. I think in the future we should include validation, but that's under the hypothesis because of all this work and this and the workspace update stub. I'd like to think that the 80% is taken care of now, that even if we do add validation, it won't be introducing all these net new paradigms that require thinking and discussing. But we can continue to think about that.
It's hard to know, right? Like, because for example, let's say the stub for like logs, right? Well, I guess maybe that's kind of one where you might just have the actual full. Who knows? Anyway, so because in this case, by validation, by the way, for context, we mean REST API validation. So like that, you make a request. So a lot of the front end doesn't know the state of the cluster, right? It only asks things about the back end. So it couldn't possibly validate you're requesting a I don't know, for some reason, something that's invalid, So what I'm saying here is, so for example, let's find a type. So secret type, right? There's probably a validation down here somewhere. Oh, that's
You just
wait.
scrolled past it. There is a validate in the types right.
Oh yeah, there you go. So the very basic one here is, oh well, anyway, this is quite complex actually. But yeah, so the most basic validation that's happening here is that, the backend tries to make sure that you're not passing clearly crazy keys to the secret, I think, and things like that. Anyway, it's cool. I won't go too much into this. Let's keep going. So by the way, as for front-end people, actually, I do want to highlight this. Make sure that you are aware the circumstances under which the backend could reject your request, and that you handle that gracefully. So, and then also we should have an agreement for most APIs, and this is a good example for like secret creation, as to what level of validation is the front end doing? So like, for example, this key, right? Like this key validation, config map key is quite complex. Like this actually is like this helper validate complex, this one here. We're actually using an internal part of Kubernetes function here. It's much more complex than it might seem. And so should the front end JavaScript do that, or should it just trust the user to do something not insane, like just don't do a true validation, but just do medium level validation?